Ever feel like you're running on empty? If so, you're not alone. Burnout is more common than you think. In fact, a 2024 survey by the Society for Human Resource Management found that 44% of people reported feeling burned out, 45% feel emotionally drained, and 51% reported feeling used up by the end of each working day. That's 140% of people. Okay, obviously they're overlapping, but you get it. This is a big deal, and the good news is that you can do something about it. Hi, my name is John Ryan. I'm a master trainer and coach, and I want to share with you a simple 3-step process to avoid burnout based on nearly 30 years of experience in training and development. And I want to begin by talking about what is burnout. Well, burnout is a state of mental, emotional, and physical exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. In other words, you're putting more energy into something than you're getting in return. And although it can occur in any area of life, including relationships and health, it's most often thought of in terms of career. So how do you know if you're experiencing burnout? Well, as the name implies, you feel burned out, like there's no more energy in the tank. So we have low energy, we feel exhausted, and even though we're tired and exhausted, we feel that we can't sleep, and that adds to the exhaustion and has a downward spiral effect. Emotionally, there's an increased level of irritability, helplessness, hopelessness, and on a behavioral level, our productivity goes down, we avoid responsibilities, and even have prolonged periods of procrastination. So what causes burnout? And you may be impacted by one or more of these, often at the same time. The most common of which is taking on too much work, not getting the support you need, which essentially drains our batteries and leaves us feeling powerless, no agency and no control over our tasks, our schedule, and even our environment. Another factor is unclear expectations. When we don't know what to expect at work, that magnifies the stress that we're already experiencing, potentially leaving us in a state of burnout. And lastly, poor work-life balance. When pressure's on at work, we tend to neglect our personal time, neglect self-care, and all the things we normally do to take care of ourselves in favor of getting things done at work. Now that we know what burnout is, how it affects us mentally, emotionally, and physically, and even where it comes from, let's take a look at what we can do to avoid burnout altogether. To do that, I want to share with you the 3 R's, which make up the simple 3-step strategy for avoiding burnout. Number 1 is reduce. And what we want to do here is reduce the demands that we're experiencing, which will ultimately reduce the pressure that we're experiencing. And we begin by learning how to set boundaries. We need to learn how to say no. Steve Jobs said the most powerful word in time management is the word no. So our goal here is to stop additional tasks from being added to the pile that we already have. Then with the pile that we're still working on, we need to do the second part, which is to prioritize. Prioritize what's important, and everything else needs to get onto the back burner. Now, one common objection I get here from my coaching clients when we talk about prioritizing things, they look at their to-do list and they say everything is important. And the reality is, chances are that is not true. I've never found a list where everything is equally important. And even if it was equally important, the truth is you can't do everything at once anyways. You can only do one thing at a time. So we're still going to do the process of prioritizing, picking the one thing you want to focus on that exclusively, and let everything else again go to the back burner. So what we're doing is we're reducing our focus from all the things that are on our mind down to really what's manageable. And that leads us to the next point, which is to delegate. While we put things on the back burner, some things are okay back there, but some things still need to get done, but they just don't need to necessarily be done by you. And the truth is, you can't do it all by yourself. So get help. Delegate if you have a team. If not, outsource it. Find a way to get help on the things that need to get done. And here's another pro tip to reduce the pressure that you're experiencing. That is, lower your expectations about what has to happen. Life is tough enough. You don't need to add on to the pile of demands you already have with perfectionism. And always remember, imperfectly done is way better than perfectly in perpetual progress. So for the first R in our process, which is reduce, we want to learn how to set boundaries, learn how to say no. We want to prioritize, we want to delegate, and ultimately lower expectations to reduce that pressure, because done is way better than working on it. The second R in our 3-step process is reset. And this is something that you can do starting today, which is to simply schedule breaks. Some people say, well, I can't afford to take breaks. I have too much going on. Well, the truth is, you can't afford not to take breaks, because it's not about quantity, it's actually about quality. I don't know if you know who Frederick Winslow Taylor is, but he was the father of scientific management back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And he was famous for doing time motion studies to increase efficiency. One classic example of his work was he was working with a railroad company and they were looking to increase the efficiency of unloading railroad cars with iron ore. Now, as you can imagine, shoveling iron ore, this is heavy, hard work. And by doing this study, they found they were able to increase efficiency by around 300%. How would you like to have 300% increase in your overall efficiency? Well, the way he did it was two simple things. Number one, adding in brakes and using the right size shovel. Because prior to Frederick Taylor, the idea for the railroad company was more and faster. But he found that if you take breaks, there's less fatigue and you actually have more productivity in the day. The other thing was using the right size shovel. Before that, people brought in their own shovels from home to do the work. So some had small shovels, some people had big shovels. If you had a small shovel, that was easy to lift, but was not very efficient. If you had a big shovel, you could obviously move more, but you couldn't maintain it because you would fatigue quicker. In a similar way, scheduling breaks allows you to have the same benefit. If you took a break every 5 minutes, that would not be very efficient. That would essentially be the equivalent of a small shovel. However, if you never took a break, you're really trying to put a lot onto your shovel to try to do as much as you possibly can, then you're going to be quicker to get fatigued. Then the question is, how often should I take a break? Well, that's going to depend on you and, of course, the type of work that you're doing. But two common approaches you might consider are the Pomodoro technique, which you may have heard of, which is 25 minutes of activity followed by 5 minutes of rest, or the 52-17 rule. This comes from neuroscience, where they found the optimal work rhythm for professionals is 52 minutes of activity followed by 17 minutes of rest. I encourage you to test out both and see which one works best for you. Now, in addition to taking breaks throughout the day, you may also want to set up a reset ritual when the day is done, just something to mark the shift from work life to home life. Find something to give your brain a little bit of break and help you shift gears. I remember when I was a kid growing up in the 80s and 90s that there was a television show called Beyond the 2000s. And the show was basically around technology and predicting what it was going to be like beyond the year 2000. And they had some pretty cool stuff, but some things haven't quite materialized, like the flying cars. I'm still looking for those, and perhaps so are you. But one of the ideas I remember from that show was they said that technology was going to progress so much that beyond the 2000s, we'd be so much more efficient and productive at what we do that we'd only work a couple hours a week. Well, I don't know about you, but that hasn't really materialized. In fact, for most people that I work with, we're not working less, we're actually working more. And since we're working more, that means our personal time is that much more rare. It makes it that much more valuable, and we need to protect it. So in addition to taking breaks throughout the day and having a reset ritual, you might also want to think about a system to capture your thoughts so that you can empty your mind when you go home. A lot of people I work with work every day, and when they're at work, they're at work, and when they're at home, they're also at work because they bring work home with them in their mind. Even if they don't bring it home, they're thinking about it even when they're playing with the kids and hanging out with the family. So what we really want to do is empty our minds. Have a way to capture your thoughts, the projects, your to-dos, if you will, whether it's a notebook, piece of paper, something digitally on your phone, some way to capture your thoughts so that you know it's there for you. So when you go back to work, it's ready to go and you don't have to waste your personal time still thinking about work problems. Now that we know how to reduce and reset, we're ready for number 3, which is recharge. Remember, burned out means we're feeling de-energized. We don't have any more energy. There's nothing left in the cup. We're totally drained. There's nothing left in the gas tank. So we got to ask ourselves, what do we do when we want to refill our batteries? What do we do? Do we play sports? Do we watch sports? Do we have hobbies? Do we have music? Do we hang out with loved ones? Do we go on a vacation? What do we do that actually fills us up and recharges our batteries? The first thing you might consider in recharging is making sure that you're scheduling downtime, whether that's an afternoon off every once in a while, taking a larger vacation, or even a weekend getaway. Another thing you can do to recharge your batteries is identify and connect with your purpose. And if you already know your purpose, awesome, reconnect with it. But think about, what is your why? You may have heard that concept before, that you can accomplish anything in life if you have a big enough why. Well, that's going to take some time. So think for a moment right now. What is your why? And if you can't think about it immediately, it's time to do some reflection, because that's what keeps you going when things get tough. I've been training and doing coaching for nearly 30 years now. And there were some periods in my life when I would do the same training 5 days in a row. Fly back home, come back 2 days later and do the same training 5 days in a row. Do the same training hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. How do you keep that energy going? How do you keep yourself from burning out? Is you stay connected to your why. You stay connected to the people that you serve. If you focus on other people, there's no room for burnout in our lives. Another tip to recharge your batteries is when those challenges inevitably come up in work and in life, make sure you talk about it with others. Don't carry all of that weight on your own shoulders without any support. So find a family member, a friend, a colleague that you trust that you can speak with. Or if none of those work, hire a professional coach or a counselor. Whatever you do, you have to do something, because nothing changes unless you do. So that's our 3R simple 3-step formula for avoiding burnout: reduce, reset, and recharge. And I want to hear from you. What do you do to reduce the stress, reset, and recharge your batteries so you can avoid burnout? Share in the comments below. I look forward to hearing what works for you. Until next time, develop yourself, empower others, and lead by example.